begins here in the Miami airport with huge lines of mainly Cuban Americans waiting to go to Cuba to visit relatives. And every person is carrying one and more of these blue wrapped items of goodies for their families in Cuba. As the sun goes down, we approach the town of Holguin. And at all Cuban airports, you walk to the plane. Friday, 4 December, finds us in the fourth largest city in Cuba, Holguin. This is a peso store, so you can buy these in coupes. You come to the main square of Holguin with the pretty buildings in the main square opposite the park. This is one of the squares in Holguin called the Square of Flowers, where the city was founded in 1545. Money, peanuts. Money. After lunch, it's a walk down a pedestrian street. They're starting to introduce these into every town. Everyone on this street, except for the tourists passing me, are locals. Shoe store. Apparently they're allowing private clothing sales again. This room at the Parisio del Rio Oro on the coast north of Holguin, Cuba. The Paradisius Rio del Oro is a big property. They have a nice infinity pool looking down towards the beach. The hotel's about 80 feet above sea level. The beach itself, so-called the best beach in Holguin, is not much to talk about. This bit of wood marks the very point where Christopher Columbus landed in Holguin in 1492 on his first voyage to the Americas.
Y de ser renace la sombra, la quietud de los cafetales vuelven a sentir esa triste canción de amor de la vieja molienda, que en el letargo de la noche parece decir, cuando la tarde languidece renace la sombra, la quietud.
Nice straight mountains. Now for lunch at the Aurora Palador with Aurora looking out upon us. And lunch from 6 to 12 kooks complete. So for 12 CUCs you get fresh fish, shrimp, lamb, and salads, rice, and yuca, which is just superb. And there's a traditional garlic and oil sauce for the yuca, or plantains if they're serving that. Ending your meal with fresh fruits. Are the barracks where Castro attacked Batista's army in 1953 to attempt to gain weapons. He failed and fled into the mountains behind him, where he was captured 5 days later. Sunday, December 6th, another cloudless day in Cuba's second largest city. I am atop San Juan Hill, and you can easily see our hotel in the distance. The hill itself is maybe 300 feet above the town of Santiago de Cuba. Not much of a challenge to charge up. The hill was defended by maybe 200 Spanish who really weren't all that interested in defending the hill from the Rough Riders in 1 July 1898. The Cubans believed that the battle had already been won by the time the Americans got here. With one last look at the top of San Juan Hill, It's off to the cemetery of Jose Marti, the person who began the fight against Spain in 1895. Changing of the guard for the Jose Marti burial spot every half hour. We are now in the main square of Santiago de Cuba, named after the person who began the revolution against Spain to free Cuba in the 1850s. The Cathedral of Santiago, the nativity scene at the cathedral. On the corner is the oldest house in Cuba, started 1517, finished in 1530. On the west corner of the square is the balcony where Fidel Castro stood to announce the success of his victory and where he began his march to Havana, as we will do tomorrow. For lunch, we are going to Grandma Island, the name of the boat that Castro returned to Cuba on from Mexico. We are off towards Camaguey. Which finds us in Cuba's second oldest city, Paemo, founded in 1514. The city is in the province of Granma, named for the boat that Fidel Castro sailed in and landed in this province in 1956. That is a school uniform right there. We are walking to the town square. Artwork, pretty buildings and a church. That square there is where the first time the Cuban national anthem was sung. And the square is named after the first president of Cuba, who later freed the slaves in the 1870s. We are now at one of the two main squares of Camaguey. Camaguey is Cuba's third largest city with a population of about 350,000. We begin our evening in Camaguey with a pedicab ride through the city at night in this bike. We are now in the square of the main theater of Camaguey. This is the second oldest theater in Cuba. We're now in Central Park, which is one of the Wi-Fi hotspots. So for 2 kooks an hour, you can, and that is CUCs, you can go online. The speed is good enough for Skype even. There are ATMs in Cuba, but they only accept foreign credit cards with an 11% commission. This is a bread ration store, totally empty, but there will be bread at 1:30. This is a pharmacy. Cubans have to actually buy the medications they are prescribed. This is where they do it. This would have been a wealthy homeowner's house. That's where the people would have lived on the third floor. That's where their slaves or servants would have stayed. And this would have been the shop that they ran. The local Cubans, when they go out, eat at places like this, which are known as cafeterias, and the food basically is all in CUP, 20, 30 cents for most everything in the restaurant. The Cubans who cannot afford the 45-cent CUC per minute charges on their cell phone, there are telephones. Children on their way to school, those scarves around their neck means they are all young pioneers. That's why there are bars on windows everywhere. And this is where we're having lunch. Restaurant 1800, very pretty restaurant. Now we are on the outskirts of Camaguey, where the streets are not paved and people get around on bikes. The symbol of Camaguey are these water-catching ceramic containers. They come in all sizes and shapes. And there's a puppy and a nice young lady. And the day ends with a Beatles cover band in the town square opposite our hotel. Lunch on 9 December finds us in the town of Sancti Spiritus. Petting dogs, the wild dogs. Very pretty. It's also very humid and slightly warm. Street features cobblestone sidewalks dating back from 1514. Some pretty decorations on the house walls. We must be in a wealthy neighborhood. This is the Guayavera Museum. Stopping here in the heart of Santa Clara, a town of 800,000. Looking at people working in the square. And now we enter the House of Culture. Every city has one to hear a concert. These are the actors and actresses posing for us.
Oh, Juliet, I love you, Romeo. I love you.
So no one speaks English. This is the way that plays are done in Cuba. And as we approach the hotel, the sun is setting with mangoes in the distance. Music at all meals.
And that's how they do
Down the street,
I need one of these. Okay. We'll make one of them. Which is
the tour this Sunday begins in the main square of Kiberian. This is a typical toilet in the print shop. No flush, no toilet seat. There is an Oldsmobile 88 with the new white license plate. If it were state-owned, there would be a blue stripe. Since there isn't, it's privately owned. We're on to the town of Remedios. Lunch in Remedios at El Corriere. This is a state-owned restaurant. That means all profits to the state, and the state sends back salary checks to the restaurant. Because of street width restrictions, we have to go to the cathedral via taxi. As we ride along in the cab, driving around the main square of Romeo.
Is from the 19th century.
Cathedral de
And then in the 20th
Remedios.
century, it was
Biggest building
restored
in
again.
town.
They rescued the ceiling.
The town of Cienfuegos in the southern coast. This is Jose Marti Square. The town was founded late 1800s. Population of 150,000. This government building is a replica of the similar location in Havana. Blue anchor signs means that there is a room to rent. Many say Santiago de Cuba rum is better, much better than Havana Club.
Welcome to our concert, and we're going to play for you quite a special concert. We're going to take you from the most classical of our music to the most popular of our street culture.
Havana in Miramar, a suburb, a very nice suburb, about 20 or 30 minutes outside of downtown Old Havana. Elementary school. Returning to the slum rural neighborhood 2 years later. All corners like this one were once garbage dumps, and garbage was sticking on the corner. There's adequate signage in Old Havana to get around. And we started a walking tour of Old Havana and Cathedral Square. There's the Hombres Mundos Hotel where Hemingway lived and right for whom the bill tolls. Rumba Marina. Wednesday is Tobacco Day here in the city of Pino del Mar. This is what people come here to see in Venice, this scenery. And at every tourist stop, of course, one will find crafts, lots of crafts, and opportunities to pay for photos. La Terraces is a state-run resort, gated community. My standard drink in Cuba. This is the local ration shop for the town. And at another location is the CUC store. From 1-year-old to 5-year-old daycare center. The cost for this is about 20 or 30 pesos a month, or $1 a month. So this is the Booster neighborhood where he's decorated every house in the neighborhood. This is the local doctor where you go if you have a minor problem or to get referrals. Now into Brewster's house. So we're in the second level, and this is the view from there. Revolutionary Square in Havana. And across from Revolutionary Square is the monument to Jose Marti, the gateway to Christopher Columbus Cemetery, the most expensive monument on the property. There are 45 burials a day here in this cemetery. And here goes one of the 45 funerals per day right here. There are no hearse horses in Cuba. Instead, they put flowers on top of a Toyota, and that's a horse. This is the Artisans Market, former warehouse. We're in a real typical Cuban neighborhood street. Listen to the noise. Here is a guy that fixes glasses. And there's the cruise terminal where all the ships will be docking in about 3 to 4 months. This is probably an excellent place to end the 3-part video of life in Cuba as we look at pictures and other video from our trip. At the bottom line, life has not really changed that very much for the average Cuban since 2011 through December of 2015. The biggest change since Obama liberalized American visitation to Cuba is that the internet has gotten a lot faster. The average Cuban can now, for 2 days' wages, get internet access at 50 hotspots in parks around the country. There are a lot of more self-employed Cubans in 2014, and they're actually showing up in the paladars eating there, so it's not just tourists anymore. And there is some wage inflation. While the average Cuban working for the state is still making $19 a month, there are doctors and other professionals are making $70 a month. Not a lot, but more. Unchanged, the number one area of concern for the average Cuban is getting enough food to survive the month on. The number one topic of discussion for the average Cuban is ending the embargo, or as they say in Cuba, the blockade. Cuba remains complicated, extremely interesting. With the sign of Viva Cuba by Fuster, this could be a good time to end the video.